So, more bits on the Mark II. We have got the beady eyes. We have got a rear wiper mechanism motor in there, and we've also got boot rams are on, so now I can open the boot and get the last bits out of there without balance on my head. I've just got to put the registration plate lights in, so I'll get on with that now. So, as you can see from the other pictures, we have got the headlights in. So the front, bar a tow eye cover under there, is complete, and I am well happy with it, considering it's been 3 years and a few months since we started this project, this restoration. It's good to have some lights in it, and we went for auto power headlights. These are H4, all UK MOT legal, and for the cost of them, it was a no-brainer to get those. They match perfectly in. Comes with bulb, side lights, all of it. Again, indicators are in, all the front's on. Bumper looks beautiful, and I'm so chuffed with the front of it. Almost complete now, getting so close. So we've got a few more bits to do. Not massive bits, but little. We need to get on top of the little bits at the moment, because there's a few little niggles I need to, not niggles, but little bits I need to nip in the bud. Get those done. I've forgotten about, ticked off the list. So I'm going to get on with those now. So spark plugs going in. We're going to be running NGK plugs, the BCP 7ETs, normal plug, simple, cheap, off the shelf, triple electrode, as they would have been from factory. No need to mess around doing the plug gaps because they're 3, but just obviously before you stick them in, have a nose, make sure they are nice and flat. Now, these spark plugs sit quite far down the hole, and if you haven't got a proper tool or anything like that, get one of your old HT lead bits, which are quite long, pop the plug in there, and you can just push it down into the hole. A few turns and it's in, simple as that. Again, get the glove out of the way. The gloves are just in there just to keep the holes blocked, so nothing to fall in there. Pop it down, feel it in here, it touch the thread, a few turns. There you go. And that's all the plugs in and on the threads, and then you can just get your ratchet or whatever you got, put them in there, tighten them up as you would, knowing you're not going to knacker the threads because they're already starting to go on the threads. So I'll give you a guess while the wheel's off and it's jacked up. The Vernier pulley is en route so we can get the engine timed up. So got the car up on an axle stand. Takes slightly long to get it jacked up now because I don't want to scratch the floor or the body. Old nappies are pretty, well, not old nappies, but nappies are pretty good. So we got it up, bottom pulley's off. What we're doing is just double checking where TDC is exactly. Some of the markings can be from the factory, yeah, they do the job, you know where they are. So what we've got here is a dial gauge. I've got a rod centralised down in on top of the piston. All I've done is centralising it is, again with the spark plug tubes, the old ones, cut a rubber section off because it fits inside there, open at the middle, wedge it in it so that is central in there. Then obviously the tube's got a hole in the top of it, so we've just got it balanced, well, sat quite strongly on a washer, and at the moment it is bob on TDC, and there's not a lot of movement because the piston comes up to the top, has a tiny dwell period and then starts going back down again, and all we want to make sure is it's bang on there. So all I'm going to do is move the spanner on the crank a touch, and you'll see dial's moving. I mean the piston's going down the cylinder. I'll move my spanner back the other way anti-clockwise. Piston's going back up the cylinder. And it's just before that 0 dwell period, and then it starts to move again. So just as that needle starts to move, I'm turning now clockwise again. There you go, it's just moved a touch more. Not moving. Not moving. starts to move again. So we know, move it back anti-clockwise again. There, so just from the camera it looks like a needle width, but that marker's bang on the 0, so we know when we're moving the spanner left and right, or anti-clockwise and clockwise, or on the dwell period of the piston, we know it is bang on top dead centre. And all we'll do now is just check on the flywheel marking and see where that is. So once we're happy that that's at TDC, which is top dead centre, which means the piston is at the top and it's in its sort of dwell period, we now want to check the mark on the flywheel. So I'll just turn the light on and squeeze the camera under there. So it's very difficult to see, but if you see the aluminium arrow on the gearbox, so this arrow there, that needs to point to the little indent, which it is now, and that means the engine is at TDC. There is another mark here that is your 6 degrees before top dead centre time mark, so we'll worry about that when the engine's running. But static timing, you need that pointer lined up with that indent there. So once that's there, you know it is bang on top dead centre. So what we've got here is the bottom crank pulley. Now you can see I've got a mark there, that's where I marked it up a while ago. We're not worried about that. Now you can put all your plastic covers on and your main crank pulley to double check the alignment mark on the between the crank pulley and the plastic housing. But when the pulley goes on, you've only got that dowel lining the pulley up with the bolts and everything. That has got sort of probably half a mil, maybe a mil, depending on how wide your pulley is, freedom of movement. So you can have the pulley on there with the nuts not tight, and you've got freedom to move it anti-clockwise and clockwise. And obviously on a bigger out edge of the pulley, lining that up with a mark on the plastic, you could be quite far out. Not enough to stop the engine running, but we want to get things bolt on perfect. So like we've done at the top, get TDC bang on where you think it is, double check the flywheel marker, and then once the flywheel marker is there, we know we're at TDC, and then we can get on with the cam timing. Now on the cam timing, we know our cams are timed with the sprocket. We've done that already. We know the lobes are pointing to each other, and the timing marks on the cam chain is bob on. So all we need to be looking at is this arrow on the rock cover and that little mark there. Now I always want to work off marks in metal, because plastic ones are bolted on, they can move around, there's a lot of free play. So if we can work off metal ones, so we've got TDC, we've checked the flywheel marker, that's solid. We know the cams are timed up, so we just want to make sure this pulley is lined up with the cam, which it is bob on. So all we need to do now is, when the Vernier pulley gets here, is remove this, double check the marks on the new pulley, get the new pulley put on there, and then we can get the cam belt on. So we'll come to that shortly. Oh. And you can see my nice ported throttle body and polish looking quite nice in there. Lovely jubbly. So we've had a delivery today. Now, Vernier pulleys. These are ideal really for getting the best power out of a naturally aspirated engine. So we've gone with Kent cams. So in the box we get a nice dial gauge, and the main thing, we've got an Allen key to adjust those, and in here we've got a little keyway which aligns the cam. So this is your Vernier pulley, very good quality. So you've got your markers there to adjust it, advance and retard. You've got your marks on there, good bit of kit. Now I have spent hours and hours looking at Vernier pulleys, finding where they come from, which is the best ones, and it's endless. There's pretty much, there's two choices, Piper or Kent cams. I got my Piper, this was £157 at the door, done deal. It's a beautifully made thing. I can see by the quality of the metal, it's all nice, done its job. Now there's other ones out there you can get. Some people have got the standard ones and have chopped and changed them, made them Vernier ones. But at the end of the day, you're putting this on an engine that's going to be spinning over at high RPM. Granted, the cam doesn't turn over as fast as the engine is, because obviously it's generally half the RPMs. So if I'm doing 8,000, not hitting 8,000 RPM, it's going to be at 4. But it needs to be balanced, it needs to be perfect, it needs to be right. So the difference of getting one of these, or even a Piper one, which is about 20 quid more, I think, versus one of the cheaper brand ones, is pointless. Just get the new one. Pay the extra and get the new one. Saves the hassle, saves any worry. You can get pegged ones, which means you can align it, adjust it, and then put a peg inside it. But then I don't like those, because then you've got a peg sitting there, which then imbalances the pulley. Because this is all balanced, it's all even all the way around. If you were then putting a peg in it to lock it, you've got extra weight on this side, so you're unbalancing the weight of it. But obviously, that's how they want to design it, but I've gone for a simple one. Now, once this has been set up, these will be tightened up as they should be. Once I'm happy with it, I'm not doing the timing. This will be going to stealth racing to get the final tweaks done with it. Once these are tight and it's all set, I'll take them out one by one and put a tiny bit of thread lock on them, just to make sure they're not going to come loose, and I can periodically check them. Now, without dropping it, so this is your standard pulley. This is a 9A, exactly the same pulley, and this is your other pulley. Now, what this does is allows the cams to be turned independently of the bottom end, so you can advance and retard the timing more than you can do with a distributor. So all we've got to do is take that pulley off and make sure the keyway and the marks line up. So I'll just pull that off now and I'll show you what you mean. These are the cams lined up. That's the gap we've got there, and our TDC mark, or cam top TDC mark, is there. And again, we've got that indent there and a mark there. So the marks line up, which is what we want, because if they don't line up and you then swap the pulleys over and those marks don't marry up, you're going to be in a world of pain to try and work out what's going on if the engine doesn't bang itself together. So all we're going to do, pop this on nice and loose, double check that lines up with the mark, which we know it does. And now you notice this is a male, this is a female, and this comes with one. So all we've got to do is put this in the cam. All I'm going to do is put a bit of super glue on there just to hold it in place while we get the pulley on. So there we go. We've got the little can't remember called now, the little tooth bit in there, bit of glue on there just to hold it in place. So pulley, pretty simple. This is your front with your Allen keys. You just want to lower that on there, and without knocking out. Where is it? There it is. There you go. Sits on nice like that. And then the same factory 10.9 bolt goes in. I'm not worried about doing this tight at the moment, because these bolts need to be done up, oiled I believe, but I just want it in there to hold the pulley on, nipped up with my fingers. What I'll do, once the engine's all timed up the cam belt, I can then apply a torque wrench to the top of this whilst holding the bottom pulley of the engine to make sure it all goes tight. So that's just nipped up with my fingers, and there we go, it's on. And as you can see, the top line there, the camera's off, so the top line is in, it looks like it's slightly off, but it's in line with it, so we're happy with that, so that's good. So as we said, that's the pulley on, looking lovely. Shame it's going to be hidden behind a plastic cover. So yeah, that's all we'll do in this video. Next video, I'll do a separate one on going over the timing, doing a belt change, markers on there, markers on the crank, on the flywheel like we mentioned this, and on the distributor, where that should be, all that sort of stuff. So check out that next video when it goes on. Cheers.